as we move to the final element of this evening, I'm delighted to have the honour of presenting this year's TK Whitaker Award to recognise a very special recipient. You've heard from Sarah and Pat about the foundation of this special award, recognising the legacy of one of our greatest public servants and statesmen, Dr. Ken Whitaker. However, for me, introducing this year's honoree is a very personal privilege. When a young Tony O'Reilly was in Belvedere College, playing so much sport that his headmaster called him aside and warned him, "O'Reilly, if you don't knuckle down and study, you'll end up selling newspapers." And so he did. I myself was once a youthful advertising executive for the opposition Irish press in the late 1980s. And here I watched in awe at how Tony O'Reilly, now an international media owner, had transformed independent newspapers from a sleepy Irish newspaper operator into an international media business with a growing global footprint. By contrast to what we have heard about our thriving economy here tonight, Ireland had very little to offer in the 1980s. At that time, there were only a handful of Irish success stories to aspire towards. The swashbuckling entrepreneur Michael Smurfit had mastered a leveraged buyout to grow the Smurfit brand in the United States. Niall Fitzgerald was climbing the top of the corporate ladder at Unilever, Gillian Bowler building her business, and Tony Ryan had dared to take on the state-owned Aer Lingus with his fledgling Ryanair. And then there was Tony O'Reilly. After an emphatic climb up the international corporate ladder, Tony had risen to become chairman and chief executive of one of the biggest corporations in the United States, H.J. Heinz. By this time, I was working at the Smurfit-owned Business and Finance Media, which provided a wonderful platform to meet many of the leading business figures of the day, albeit a little out of my depth. And some might argue I'm still out of my depth. But when I was coming through the industry, Tony O'Reilly was a business powerhouse who had established himself in Ireland and on a world stage. And through his achievements at Heinz, along with his other business interests, Tony was showing the ingredients needed to be successful: innovation, drive, personality, and perseverance. He did, however, have one secret ingredient that couldn't be bottled. And that was the ability to identify, connect, convene, and mobilize the most influential people to make great things happen. The greatest example of this still exists today in the form of the Ireland Funds, which Tony founded with Pittsburgh Steelers owner Dan Rooney. The legacy of the Ireland Funds has stood the test of time and continues to make an incredible impact. Tony used his profile, his position, and his network, particularly stemming across his international rugby career, to powerful use. One of the more standout illustrations of this is when Tony, with the Ireland Funds, took a group of Northern Irish leaders to meet Nelson Mandela in 1997. And using his power of persuasion, Tony convinced Mandela to meet with each of the Northern Irish leaders separately to take learnings from South Africa's ending of apartheid 3 years before. 1 year later, the Good Friday Agreement was signed. Tony's impact was a vitally important ripple in a wave of change. At Business and Finance, Tony was always top of our list of leaders we wanted to recognize, given his immense achievements. And in 2006, I had the fortune of meeting Tony, who accepted my invitation to be recognized for his outstanding journey in business. At the Gala Awards, Tony spoke with his usual eloquence about how Ireland's fortunes had turned, noting that we had gone from being the poorest country of GDP per capita to the richest. What I don't think Tony appreciated at the time was his role in both driving and inspiring others to be part of that success story. Tony achieved his success in spite of being Irish. And today, because of him, you achieve what you achieve because you're Irish. As most business leaders and indeed political leaders in this room will know, the wins are few and the challenges are often many. Tony provided as much inspiration in how he handled losing as he did winning. Seamus referred to this earlier, noting Tony's belief that the lessons about winning and losing is that if you don't know how to lose, you don't know how to live. This showed Tony's unique perspective on life, derived from the shared experience of meeting triumph and challenge with equal vigor. Tony also had status and presence that allowed him to command any room at any level. And on receiving his recognition on that memorable evening in 2006, he referred to an unusual inspiration, not one of the academic greats such as Peter Drucker. Tony, however, referenced the words of another great influencer, Groucho Marx, who said that business success is all about honesty and integrity, and if you can fake that, you've really made it. But Tony didn't fake it. He made things happen. He put Ireland on the map. He left everything on the pitch of rugby and life and helped change the way that Irish business people thought about their potential. Tony O'Reilly built things. He built businesses and networks. Tony had passion and compassion. He took his own opportunities and made opportunities for others. He defined philanthropy, personally placing his hand on the arc of opportunity for Ireland and guiding it towards a better place. A leader, an innovator, philanthropist, and Everest among the sand dunes. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the O'Reilly family, can you please be upstanding, Tony O'Reilly Jr.
Thank you all so very much. It's a great honor to stand here before you celebrating excellence in the spirit of the great Ken Whitaker and accepting the award on behalf of my late father, Tony O'Reilly. Now, I was actually going to use the line that he used, so we should have but Dad did honestly say that he studied under Marx, Groucho, not Karl, and he said the secret of business success is honesty and sincerity. And that was going to be my segue to say, I'm sure you'll all agree that Ken Whitaker and my father certainly didn't need to fake anything. Because if you look at them, Ken's achievement over his incredible 100 years are far, far too numerous to mention. But he was assuredly a mentor to my father, and he honored our family by being chair of the O'Reilly Foundation Scholarship Fund. And as that video shows that you put together, and thank you very much, Ian, my father was no slouch either. On the rugby field, by the age of 19, he'd played for Old Belvo, Leinster, Ireland, the Barbarians, and the British and Irish Lions. And by the age of 23, and this all makes me feel really inadequate as a son, but anyway, he'd played for the Lions 38 times. He'd scored a total of 38 tries, a record that still stands today, nearly 65 years later. He was, and I think many of you know that, very passionate about his rugby. And he used to say rugby was a pretty good template for life. It was about teamwork, discipline, and passion, qualities he carried into every aspect of his life. And as he once said, the beauty of the game of rugby is that it's the ultimate team game. You can't win it alone, no matter how good you are. And then, as the video showed, there was his fabled business career, which saw him create Kerrygold and prove that there are actually cows in Kerry. Then his move to the sugar company, which of course was a precursor to Glencore. And then his move to the UK and ultimately to the United States, where he had his 30-year career at the H.J. Heinz Company, starting out as the youngest ever CEO of a Fortune 100 company. And he did all that whilst also building a slate of businesses in his beloved Ireland over 50 years. with names, and again, we heard some of them, Independent News and Media, Waterford Wedgwood, Aircom, Fitzwilton, Archon, Provenance, and so many others, all very well documented, I have to say, by business and finance over the last, 50 years. In a sense, my father, and again, Ian said this, and other trailblazers like Tony Ryan and Michael Smurfett helped give birth to the Celtic Tiger. Not technically, but they gave people the proof, the inspiration, and the self-belief that no Irishman should ever have to accept second place, and that an Irish person could rise to the highest levels anywhere in the world. Because at his core, and perhaps to his ultimate financial detriment, Dad was always a true and committed Irishman. So when many left these shores, found success, but never came back, Tony O'Reilly never really left. Indeed, he invested. Some say maybe he overinvested in this country. And then there was his philanthropy, the Ireland funds, and the many academic buildings adorned with the O'Reilly name, or as we kids like to joke in our family, our feckin' inheritance. Ian said it, and many people have said it before, but truly the Ireland Funds is arguably his most enduring legacy. He and Dan Rooney and all those who helped build the fund simply saved lives by providing a nonviolent and positive alternative for the Irish diaspora to support Ireland through one of its most turbulent periods in the 70s and 80s, and has to this day, and the number keeps on increasing, but it's certainly raised over 600 million, maybe going to 700 million, to safeguard peace, culture, and charity across this island. And I want to just, again, publicly acknowledge what an incredible organization the Ireland Fund is. And yet his greatest good fortune was not rugby, business, or philanthropy, but his friends and his family. At his eulogy in May, we reflected on how it was actually his incredible, long-standing friendships around the globe, be it his rugby pals, his school chums, his business colleagues, his horse racing friends. These were the friendships that defined who he was and how he acted. So in closing, on behalf of my sister Susie, who is here with us tonight, my two brothers, who sadly couldn't be here, and my two other sisters who couldn't be here, and my extended family, including my recently arrived grandson, I want to thank Ian Hyland, and Business and Finance for honoring the life of Tony O'Reilly with this TK Whitaker Award. My father was such a huge admirer of and friend of Ken's, and he knew better than most the truly unique role that Ken played in shaping modern Ireland, which my father happily celebrated around the world over his life. So it's fitting, therefore, to finish with my father's favorite quote from W.B. Yeats: "Think where man's glory begins and ends, and say, my glory was, I had such friends." Thank you very much.